paper, nearly as old as communication itself, and has a wide variety of colors, textures, weights, and capabilities. The paper company Fedrigoni has asked for a fully integrated marketing campaign for one of their many paper ranges over multiple channels. First step was to find out more about Fedrigoni. I looked at their background, products and services, their history, visions and missions, as well as their competition and competitive advantages. I then looked at their paper ranges and their respective qualities and USPs. I went out and found their Fedrigoni drawing paper, which closely resembled their Woodstock range, so that was the range I picked for the project. After experimenting with the paper, I drew up 3 visual proposals in response to the brief. They centered around sustainability, luxuriousness, nature, and interactivity. To make sure I was fully understanding the brief, I wrote a report on the brief in relation to the identity and visibility of the company, the nature of the design problem it sets out to address, and the opportunities it offers for innovative thinking. I also looked at which aspects of the brief were non-negotiable and which aspects allowed for creative interpretation. The only stipulation is that the designer showcases their fantastic range of papers, and the outer packaging should be black. The rest is essentially up to the designer. They say they are open to new designs, as long as the designer can fully demonstrate how the idea will work. I then realized my initial proposals weren't innovative enough and went back to the drawing board. I shifted away from a standard box and opted for a cylinder container. I also decided to add braille to make the design solution more accessible. And even though braille should be everywhere, it unfortunately isn't. So this isn't to make it stand out, it is bringing awareness to the gap in the creative industry. From there, I wrote up another report, considering the client's expectations of the designer and if the proposal was off-brief. Fedrigoni state their target audience will expect the paper to perform demanding tasks, so the designer will have to have good knowledge on paper and how to work with it. They want a design solution that stands out, reflects their reputation, gains more customers, and is practical. I felt the history aspect was lacking, so I made a note to remedy this later. I then identified 4 outcomes that would evaluate the design success, which were innovation, sells paper range, represents Fedrigoni and their story, and target audience appropriateness. With these outcomes in mind, I drew up 2 concept boards containing variations of my proposal, addressing these outcomes in a different way. Before choosing a proposal to take forward, I had to identify and rethink assumptions made on the objectives, audience, and deliverables. The conclusions from this exercise were that clients don't want a boring history lesson and can rather be sold on Fedrigoni's sustainable business practices. The design solution doesn't have to be strictly sophisticated and devoid of fun, and digital elements can be used in design solution. Now to look into incorporating shock, empathy, and humor into the design. I decided to shock the viewer with statistics on paper waste, talk about Fedrigoni's sustainable practices to evoke empathy, and add a humorous tiny ladybug sitting on a flower petal. These additions connect to viewers more personally, as it feels less like an advert and more like people teaming up to help the environment. I made paper prototypes of my final idea. While I was doing so, I kept track of all the different parts and their measurements to make the final assembly easier. I designed a pamphlet to go inside the bottom drawer. This shows the Woodstock color options and has information on why the paper is special, information on paper waste, and the benefits of recycling paper waste, as well as a QR code leading them to more information on Fedrigoni's sustainable practices. I also designed a business card for Fedrigoni, using embossing, gold paint, and braille to elevate the centerpiece of the design. I printed these off and got to work putting together the design piece. I did have to paint the paper the appropriate colors, as I only had the sub-brand's white paper to work with. The actual process of putting the piece together was enjoyable and rewarding. I got to make use of my crafting skills and experience to execute a beautiful piece of direct mail. The white lily is Italy's national flower, showing off Fedrigoni's heritage briefly, and the trees reinforce the sustainability of the paper. The Fedrigoni logo is proudly displayed both inside and outside the packaging, and the direct mail is overall neat, compact, and shows off good paper knowledge. Clients that are sent this will feel obligated to keep it, and some may even put it on display for others to see. The other channels I'm using to promote this piece are social media and the Fedrigoni webpage for Woodstock. This way, anyone with internet access can see it, and targeted clients that got the direct mail can feel special that not everyone has it. I really like how it all turned out, and the fact that it caters to visually impaired people is a special bonus that I want to incorporate into my future print designs.